I don't like MGK. Like, generally, as a celebrity, I find him to be very insufferable. I obviously don't know the guy personally, so I can't tell you anything about the cut of his jib, but the whole celeb couple with Megan Fox thing back in the day was a wild endeavor, and all of his acting and directing efforts have been middling to bad from what I've heard, and have been general side projects to his also shit music career, which has really no redeeming qualities for me. But then there's Tickets to My Downfall. Before this album, MGK was probably most well known for a shitty pop rap music crossover song with Camila Cabello, and a rap beef with Eminem that got him absolutely slaughtered. It's pretty bad when you get defeated by That's an Awfully Hot Coffee Pot era Eminem is all I'm trying to say. The common joke at the time was that he had to move genres just to revive his career, which is how we got this album to begin with, it seems like, along with COVID lockdowns having people just mess around with random side projects in their free time. On his previous album, which consisted of the same shitty white boy rap he'd been known for at that point, he had a Fluke pop-punk-esque song with Youngblood that I actually really liked, with very lush production, just randomly out of nowhere, which hinted at this pivot that he ended up making. He made friends with Travis Barker, the drummer of Blink-182, and husband to a Kardashian, I'm not quite sure which one, and he has become the infamous producer in the pop-punk space since then. He also produced Willow's 2021 EP and hit song Transparent Soul, which actually got him a feature credit, and along with Dan Nigro producing Olivia Rodrigo's debut album Sour, all this buzz contributed to people thinking there was going to be a pop-punk revival that would be the new sound of the 2020s. While that specifically didn't happen, Rodrigo's continued success still has people holding out hope for a rock revival in this decade. For more discussion on that topic, check out my previous video. I got some random dude making some very interesting comments under that video that clearly didn't really watch the video and just reacted with hostility right away for pretty much no reason, but they asked about MGK, so I'm making this video for you. If you leave a comment suggesting what you want me to talk about on this channel, no promises that I'll make a video, but I do appreciate any and all suggestions. Just, one comment would be ideal. I know this specific person was not suggesting they were being rude, but I've decided to approach the world with positivity and earnestness. It helps me stay sane in these topsy-turvy times. But in 2021, especially with Olivia Rodrigo's debut and with MGK appearing, people were starting to question if, this whole pop-punk revival had any weight. I mean, Willow also had a pretty famous EP at the time. Is this a safe enough space for me to admit that I actually really like Tickets to My Downfall? I'm one of those people. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't help it. It's just who I am. That was just a fluke. It didn't really inspire a bigger trend outside of the artists who just happened to be making that sound all coincidentally at the same time. Maybe they were responding to some sort of cultural moment, but as far as we're aware, it was just a silly little thing that happened in that specific year. MGK in a lot of ways was at the forefront of this pop-punk fluke of 2021, along with Olivia Rodrigo and Willow. Barker has produced for a lot of people in this style of music. He was the go-to guy for this mode of accessible yet still legit sounding pop-punk that cropped up during this era, and he has the credentials to back it up as the drummer of Blink-182. When he joined the band was when their sound really got good and mainstream to boot. His drumming skills are phenomenal as well. You can tell his style once you become accustomed to it, and good drumming on a pop-punk song really divides the good from the shit for me in my opinion. Bringing drums back to mainstream pop music was a godsend, honestly. It's quite impressive he was able to do that at all. He also produced the Avril Lavigne album Love Sucks that came out in 2022, along with John Feldman, who, if you recognize the name of, was the producer for 5 Seconds of Summer's first 2 albums and their 10-year anniversary song, 2011, which came out in late 2021. It's their most pop-punk sounding song in a while, which was an homage to their early career, hence why they brought Feldman back to aid in the production. See, I knew I'd find a way to mention 5 Sauce in this video. It's my goal to do so at this point as a stan. Michael Clifford, the lead guitarist for 5 Sauce and my quintessential celebrity crush, also co-produced the song along with their entire 5th album, 5 Sauce 5, which is my favorite album of theirs, if that means anything to you. He also has a solo album that's really good, and I have a feeling you would like it if you enjoy Tickets to My Downfall. Okay, obligatory 5-sauce glazing is done now, I promise. This may be a controversial take, but I think whatever MGK was attempting to make on this record is very similar to what so many artists on MySpace were doing right when the site imploded and they all were starting to go mainstream. At least in terms of, like, aesthetic and sound. A lot of artists got their start promoting themselves on MySpace, from the Jonas Brothers to Nicki Minaj, but my emo ass will always associate the site with the sound of extremely pop-sounding music from bands who had emo fringes, face piercings, and hand tattoos. It's kind of like how every country artist right now has to have a rap background and a bunch of face tattoos to be successful on TikTok and radio, except replace rap with math rock and TikTok with MySpace, and keep radio the same. Personally, I actually like to call this sound Facebook pop more than anything else. Even though a lot of these artists got their peaks during the MySpace era, I associate the sound so much more deeply with the internet era that was so close to follow after with Facebook. There's just something about the cross between the Radio Disney crowd of Demi Lovato's debut album, which is good, We Are the In crowd, and whatever Never Shout Never we're doing that really just screams Facebook era pop culture to me. This is where the ukulele starts to enter mainstream discussion, folks. We're bordering on hipster culture here with this style of music. MGK and his pop punk pivot, while to him probably seemed like career suicide, is way too mainstream and accessible to really function that way for the general public, a lot like the Facebook pop was despite the images of those creating it. But we'll get more into this concept of career suicide a little bit later in the video. All I'm saying is MGK spiritly has a lot more in common with artists like The Ready Set than he does to Blink-182 and their true punk roots in a pre-1999 TRL era. There's a real metro station energy to this that I can't quite pinpoint, honestly. Like, I know all of that stuff looks extremely corny now, and it definitely was back then as well, but some people found this endearing, or even cool back then, in the same way that we kinda do with Tickets to My Downfall and that first Olivia project. They all definitely slap, let's make that obvious, but we're afraid to admit it considering just how much these artists bruise and bleed on the record. Or in the Facebook pop case, because the songs are just that catchy. Like, seriously, half of these songs have been stuck in my head now as I've been editing this video, just getting clips for it. But I might be scaring the hose with that opinion, so let's just move on to talking about the record itself. Oh, and by the way, to cover all my bases, I know these guys wouldn't technically be considered emo, this is closer to what may be considered scene, but I'm not having that interculture debate with y'all. Feel free to fight amongst yourselves in the comments to encourage engagement. Did I just get a fucking mosquito bite while I was recording? What the hell? As for the record itself, I'm a huge fan of the production. I think Barker has a good ear for, like I said earlier, catchy hooks that will please most while still keeping the guitars chunky enough to satisfy the emos like me who need that kind of stuff to feel validated. The storytelling feels very earnest, and I could really connect with the struggles he described throughout the songs surrounding addiction, loss, and romance. Again, I haven't heard much of his rap career because it seems pretty insubstantial, but I would most likely put his style of music into the emo rap category, which is the second time I'm talking about this genre on this channel. First was when I made my video about Somber. The genre title signals more towards the lyrical material than anything else, since this era of rap music focused on the emotional lyrics rather than other subjects that primarily consumed the content of that genre. And also, the music was a lot more downtrodden as well, but that was a general trend that was sweeping all of popular mainstream music at the time, so it really lended itself to the emo rap genre. There's actually a lot of crossover with pop punk in that way when you look at other artists in this space. I don't have time to get into that right now, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, because it's kind of like nu metal, but like not at all. Maybe that's another future video, who knows. MGK on this record goes on about his continued substance abuse issues and childhood traumas, with the occasional sprinkle of relationship ennui that is kind of romantic if you squint your eyes and slant your head a little. The best song on the album is probably the best MGK song that will ever be made, which is titled Forget Me Too featuring Halsey, and it describes the mess and drama of a toxic relationship that is right at its breaking point, from both sides of the implosion, which is pretty cool. The lyric, "It's an emotional kaleidoscope," really describes the album perfectly, because soon after, we move on to songs about being emotionally confused, as well as goofy tracks about aliens, because that sure is something Blink-182 would have done back in the day. I know the track isn't actually about aliens, it's just a coincidence and is actually more likely a reference now that I think about it. The most romantic song, Bloody Valentine, has the line, "I'm overstimulated and I'm sad, I don't expect you to understand," which sums up the emotional intelligence that most of these songs seem to have, which I really like actually. Usually with these types of projects, it's from petulant teens from suburbs who haven't actually experienced the world enough to get that their problems aren't the most important thing going on, and you can pretend for a moment that you're in their shoes and revel in the frivolous angst. But MGK being in his late 20s when he wrote this album, to me, really highlights his stunted emotional growth as a result of all of the drama I list that he talks about earlier in his lyrics. It really contributes to the tragic character we see displayed on what he cuts to wax. Speaking of, the album ends on a dour note with "Play This When I'm Gone," which actually functions as a suicide note by saying goodbye to the world as his troubles consume him. The interlude preceding it has him talking with Megan Fox about how they don't want to die without at least living life. So all the indulgences the previous songs engage with, all tinged with that sourness of regret and taking it too far, really echoes in the album's conclusion that maybe it really wasn't all that worth it. So while the lyrical ethos is definitely something more akin to a literal downfall that we're all watching passively from the bleachers, the marketing and eventual success of this record, which actually revived his career with an actual hit under his belt with the song My Ex's Best Friend featuring Black Bear, it paints the record in retrospect as a well-needed pivot that was expertly timed. I can't say that's the same for literally anything else throughout his career though. Seems like they really captured lightning in a bottle there. That's all I have for today. Expect a video from me about a retrospective on Let Go at some time in the future. Can't tell you when exactly.
Look at the color of that sky. Yeah, but I'll still take blue. I don't know. I think I might get used to this.